Hi,
Okay.
everyone. I'm Bonsy Yelsangi. I'm a certified Scrum trainer with Scrum Alliance. I have my company called Attain Agility, and I'm the CEO and founder of that company. I'm very excited to be here.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, we're going to have some fun in Scrum. So make sure that you stay agile. I have Bonsi, the queen of Scrum, and I was just telling her, not to embarrass her, but how I picked her. I listened to her. I looked at her and I said, yep, she can teach me for 2 days. I will not fall asleep because all my Cameroonians, all my Africans were saying, Kellen, you have to do Scrum. You use it already. We've worked with you. We know you. And I'm like, what is this Scrum thing? And I always want to learn. It's probably why I got my, graduate degree so quick many moons ago, because it was many moons, you guys. I just look like this. But Bonsi, welcome to the show. How are you doing, Scrum Queen?
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Kellen, for such a wonderful introduction. I'm doing very well. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. And if you guys, I know majority of you are listeners, but if you want to be nice, and this would be worth it, to go see what Bonsi her set up and see her book that she has right there. It looks like she has the big copy. That's the real media copy. But this book that you have is awesome. We're going to get right into it, but I need to go just deeper, because I met so many people in those groups who were unemployed while we were doing the Scrum training. I need to know, how did you start? You have so many accolades and things that people can see. How did you get into Scrum? And I don't believe it was 17 years ago, unless you started in elementary or middle school. But hey, that looks good on the press release. So tell the people, how did you start your journey?
Yeah, so yes, it has been 17 years ago. That I can definitely say. It's just, yes, I started very young working, but I would say that it was not always Scrum. So I did start off, working in testing. So I was into software testing. And in that organization where I was working, there were 2 different projects. And in one of them, they were using the traditional way, waterfall. And in another project, they started using Scrum. So I wasn't very familiar with it. But what I realized was that I was always very excited to be on that project where they were using Scrum, because in Scrum, every team member is empowered. Everybody knows what's going on. They have a say in it. So I was always, very attracted to that. Okay, what is that thing that we are using? And that's not what we are using in that other project where we are using the traditional way. So, and then that was my first experience where, I worked on a team that was using Scrum. And from there, I started researching about it and, how do I get an experience actually working as a Scrum Master, and which other teams, are using Scrum. So that was my very first start with Scrum.
Okay. And, did you have to have, or do you have a degree, because you could be MD, and there was an MD, she had dropped out in our group. She was a medical doctor.
Yes.
And I was like, you're smart enough to get into med school. What are you doing here? But she was looking for other avenues. So before you went all the way to Scrum and working, did you finish university? And, give us a background on that.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, you don't need a university degree to use the Scrum framework. So this is a very simple set of guidelines that is teaching us how to embrace changes and deliver value to your customer. So there is no university or college for it. Yes, of course, you have your own degree that you are working on, and you may be using Scrum for any kind of household project or planning a vacation or running a hospital. It can be used anywhere because it's a simple structure. I have done my degree in computers, and I wasn't even aware of Scrum when I was in college or studying about it. But then when I started working, that's when I started hearing about it and started seeing that, oh, this is a framework that a lot of teams are using to, organize their work, to embrace the changes that are happening in the market. So it's 2 different things, having a degree and using the Scrum framework.
Okay, because when people are trying to get jobs, and I saw people who were even they were older than me, and I'm old, so I was like, man, they're older than me, and they're I'm as you'll see, I'm totally agile. I'm out the box of everything. Even I tell my family, 78 years when I transition, don't put me in a box. Do me like we did my mother. Tell my kids and my wife, don't put me in a box, because I don't follow the traditional rules and anything, because I'm always trying to break them to fit me. But like with Scrum and you doing computers, it's very do it this way, do it that way for most people. But you have your outliers sometimes who say, oh, you can make the code do this. Were you one of those people? Were you front end, back end? Give us the game. I want to go deep.
So I had a proper blueprint, like studies, college, do your degree, get a job, the whole thing, how it is, everybody just do it this way. And I was following that path. And I started working, I started all these different projects that I was part of. And then slowly, when you realize that this is not something I'm happy, I don't know what I'm doing in terms of that project, that what is the overarching goal here? I am just a part, but I have no idea, how does this whole thing fit into the big scheme? So then when the other teams started using Scrum, I was like, over there, I was part of it from the beginning. For me, I knew what my role was, what is expected of me. And frankly, it was just that bonding with the team. Because in there, you are like a pit crew. You're all in it. Everybody's working together as peers. There's no hierarchy. We are not reporting into one another, but at the same time, you're all accountable. So that sense of ownership was extremely high on that project. And it was something that I really felt that, oh, this is something I connect with. This is something I really love. So let me look into it more. So even though most of my peers were doing the waterfall and, the traditional way, this is something I connected so much with it that I'm like, no, I have to look into this. I have to read about it. I have to talk to people who are using this for so long. And how is this so different? And why am I connecting so much with it?
Can you tell people, for the young woman out there who hears your wonderful accent and says, wait, she sounds like me. She may even look like me. Where are you from?
I'm from Mumbai, India. And I'm born and raised in India. And over here, I came to United States almost 12 years ago. So that's where, So now I'm currently in Texas. That's where I reside. Yes.
Okay, and that's really a Texas accent, you guys, that I heard. So that's what I was going for. Some of the best stuff, like if you go to YouTube and you want to do YouTube hacks, I manage influencers and other people. If you don't know like Hindi, you won't know some of the tricks and tips. Do you think being from India helped you out? Because you guys get, like, Asia gets the stuff first, period. And then, you got people come to CES, and then America gets to see how second and third world we really are. Like, what? That exists? Mobile money? What's that? And, that's just one example, you guys. Yeah. But I've been in London, and I couldn't catch a bus with my family because I wasn't contactless. And I'm like, oh man, I'm supposed to be a tech guy, but can't even catch a bus without it. But do you think that helped you out because of, just how advanced the rest of the world is?
Yes, I would say that, being an immigrant, it always, you have your own set of challenges. And at the same time, you have a lot of motivation. You are out of your own, home country. You are into a new place, new surroundings, new environment. You're always looking for ways on, okay, how do I, make it here? How do I try this? And also when you're away from your familiar area, I think you are not very shy about what will people say or what will people think, because nobody knows me here. So let me go and try this. What's the worst that's going to happen? Even if I fail, they don't know me. There's no one to say, well, oh, my relatives know me, or my, what I'm saying? So it's more of like, okay, let me just give this a try and let's see where it goes. So I think that not having anyone know you kind of works in your favor sometimes.
Were there any, did you maybe hear about Scrum before most? Because even some Americans still, they're like, Scrum, like myself. What was Scrum? I'm just doing my business, minding my Black business, as I say. And I'm like, what is this Scrum thing? To the point where one of my Cameroonian in-laws, she was like, killing. In Dallas, they're saying no Cameroonians apply anymore because folks are lying on their Scrum resume. That's a whole nother saying they have more experience than they have, right? We can talk about that later, but did you find like maybe you knew about Scrum beforehand, or maybe had people who could tell you and go deeper so you could write this beautiful book and train the rest of us?
You won't believe it, but Scrum has been here for quite some time. It was created in early 90s. It's only recently it has acquired all this popularity. So I would say that, yes, there are many, many individuals who've been implementing Scrum and know about Scrum, but all this popularity is just in, last few years. So, but there are still many, many other people or many individuals who don't know about Scrum. And that's where, I love teaching about it and spreading the word about Scrum, that, this is something very useful. It is working. It is very effective. Let me tell you about it.
Well, I'm glad you are telling us about it. Like I aforementioned, when I listen to YouTube and I say, oh, man, is that Hindi? And then I have to, there's 2-3 other languages in Mumbai alone that could be spoken. I want to know the good stuff, because the best stuff is hidden in the folks who actually know how to code, actually know math, algorithms. That's not necessarily America's strongest point. Yes, I'm talking about you, America, because we need to study more and the things that matter, not just the gossip. But it's almost like when you're teaching, this is what you were meant to do. It's like you're so natural, and then maybe you've done it 100 times. What would you say? When was the time you got comfortable just teaching, saying this is my space?
So initially, I would say that when I started teaching Scrum, I would do it to the team that I'm part of. That whatever I had studied or researched, I would go and teach that to my team. And then slowly it so happened that now I found myself teaching all the teams in that organization, not just my team, but there are other managers saying, hey, I heard you speak at that Scrum thing. Why don't you come and teach us? Or why don't you talk about it to my team and see if we can go from there? And slowly I realized now I'm teaching the whole organization. And then one of the days I got invited to a meetup outside the organization. There was an individual who said, oh, you know what, I host meetups once a month. Why don't you come to that center and talk about it? Talk about Scrum, what impediments you've seen, or, what are some good things? And then slowly I realized that I had a knack for it. I felt quite comfortable teaching, and also in a very simple way. I don't use these big jargons or, anything very complex. It's like simple stuff. This is how it is. This is how it's going to help you. And these are the different elements. So, and then from there, I realized that teaching is what I really, really love. This is what I want to do, and I like to do it. So then over the years, I started, I would say, learning more about how to become a better trainer, about better teacher. So I've taken some courses that helps me put together the content, create my own workbook. How do I, make sure my participants are retaining that information? I don't want to be those trainers where it's death by PowerPoint, where you have like 200 slides and you just go, one after the other. No, over here, I want to make sure that you're actually retaining what I'm teaching.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something, not to embarrass you, but when I first heard you during the speaking and I said, wow, she didn't like stutter, she didn't do anything, she really knows her stuff. I was like, I wonder if she's like AI. Is she like Chat GDP? Is she, you're perfect for Black Mirror season, whatever we're on. It's just like, this is what I know. And it's just awesome. Have you ever done any type of acting? Do you do public speaking in big, arenas, anything like that?
Well, thank you so much for that feedback. It really helps knowing this. So no, I've never done any acting, but yes, I do speak at conferences, but, and I do speak at meetups. It's always about Scrum and, women in Agile. So yes, I have got those opportunities to speak.
Okay, and any podcast or YouTube of your own in the works for this year? Not that you need more to do, but just so if they want to connect even in deeper and go deep, because not everybody can read this book. Some people may have to listen to it, in an audiobook in the future.
Yes, so I've started getting those requests that, why not have an audiobook? I can listen to it while I'm driving or if I'm commuting. And I told my partner who I wrote this book with, Valerio Zanini, he's also another trainer. And I, just told him about it that, maybe we are getting few requests about an audiobook, and let's see. Yeah, we may have one in future.
Okay, now Scrum, you guys, and there's a reason why I have not told you everything about Scrum, because one, you can go to any video. She has other interviews. You can Google her name, and they were good interviews. You can go check that out. I don't want to repeat anything. I want to really have this connect with somebody who is struggling. I just had a friend the other day when I did mine, maybe 2 months ago with you for Scrum, maybe a month and a half. And I now have someone saying, Kellen, what was that thing that started with the S? I got to get out of this Uber thing. And I'm like, Scrum? And he's like, yeah, that's it. But And I, of course, hey, this is who you should go through and listen. But Scrum can only change your life like any certification or any degree unless you work it. And that's where your book comes in. Do you find that people, after reading and really you have to study the book, are they ready for their first job? Because I've seen some people who will train you for like $3,500. I've actually had them on as guests. And then they'll actually put you in Scrum projects. So you're paying to learn the process. Do you recommend that? Or is there another way that you might have people, get their feet wet?
So what I have heard from my readers who've, been very kind enough to give me that feedback, that after reading the book, I'm feeling confident that I can at least go to that interview. If they ask me any scenario-based questions, then I know what I can say. I have read enough. Also, many of them, they do this in their day-to-day life. It's just that they don't have a formal name for it. So currently, the biggest transition I am seeing is teachers transitioning to becoming Scrum Masters, because those skills are so transferable that a lot of teachers have told me that, we do this all the time. I'm using this framework. I'm constantly working with my students and other teachers. It's just that I didn't know that this is what a Scrum Master does in a Scrum framework. So after reading this book, they're like, oh, now I'm very confident that I can use my skills, my existing experience to go and speak, at the interview. So I think that's a big win for me as an author, as a trainer, that I'm helping you get ready for an interview. I think that's a big, big win.
But since no Scrum is alike, and again, I've had a guest who teaches this as well, and he was his own Scrum Master and product developer and I said, hold on, you're breaking the rules. But he's like, well, you got to be agile when you don't have money. And I'm like, okay, so throw out all the rules. It's really something where if you get it, you get it. Waterfall method. It's the reason why Universal and all those folks, I didn't even apply. I don't want to follow. What we have to do is what we have to do right now. And since we've never had, big budgets, at least in the beginning, we had to just start small sprints. So all that made sense to me in the beginning. What can someone who, whether they have a degree or not, when they feel comfortable, have you seen people, what range should they be in? Because you got somebody who's trying to feed a family and they're like, wait, should I take this lower job just to get my feet wet? Can I even do it? Which is something in any job people get nervous about. Again, the book, you guys, she has it bigger than me, but it's a great, okay, I can get more comfortable. But where should people be looking at if they've read your book, if they've got their Scrum certification? Should they be looking at 45,000, 65,000? Because everybody, of course, wants 6 figures. Everyone's not qualified for that, though, and doesn't do a good job. I'm talking about you. Yes, you people. But tell them how that should work and how you gradually change from making the, let's say it's 60,000 to making more as a Scrum Master.
currently, if you just search in LinkedIn or Glassdoor or any other job portals, there are people. If you just put Scrum Master, you'll see like tons of jobs listing out for Scrum Masters. And now a lot of organizations, they've realized that when you start implementing Scrum, you want people who know the Scrum framework. They can help guide your teams. And also when you know somebody who uses Scrum, it becomes faster for your team to implement it, because you have a coach now with you who's helping you. So it's very hot market right now for Scrum Master jobs. Also, many organizations are looking into remote Scrum Masters. So it's not that you can just be a Scrum Master in your own city, but there are a lot of organizations who are giving you an opportunity that maybe you are in Texas and the job is in Florida and they want you to be remote. So it's just right now, I would say, a lot of jobs in the market, and the range is also quite good. I recently had one of my participants tell me that they just got selected after not, I would say, just 4 weeks of applying for interviews, going through multiple rounds, and she got an offer of 110,000. So I would say I was very, very happy with her. She did have some previous experience in IT, not as a Scrum Master, but the amount she told me I was like, wow, that's fabulous. And she's like, yeah, she's pretty thrilled about it.
Well, and again, my words, not yours. When someone calls you with something like that, it would be nice if you guys, sent over I call a blessing, and saying, hey, I got this, big bump. Let me, do some first fruits and help, push the cause to the person who taught you, just because when she's doing that job and she's getting that amount of money, she may need her professor, her teacher again. And she might pick up if you, remembered her when you get that, 10,000 a month and up. Is this something that you can see being taught in the middle schools and high schools to students so they don't have to start so late? And have you looked at trying to do that with any of the government RFPs, RFQs, source of SOX we love? Give us the game on that.
Yes, so a lot of schools have begun at least looking into this. So they have, certain schools that I know, some of my peers, they are into, teaching in schools, and they started with high schoolers. And then as the program succeeds, the pilot program, then they are definitely planning to, introduce it to middle school and even the younger kids, because frankly, it's all about the mindset. You are encouraging your students to work as a team. We want them to start thinking that this is the goal. How would you get it done? You don't want someone dictating or micromanaging you, telling you every step of the way, do this, do that. No, we are giving you the intent. This is what the goal is of this semester. You are the students. How are you going to get this done? What kind of, things we will need? Or we are teaching them to become empowered. Use your own brain. How are we going to do this? We all have our own strengths. Let's use it. So yes, schools are looking into it. And in fact, some schools have already started implementing it. So that's a very good thing.
All right. So when we see you rolling around in the hoverboard or the floating Rolls Royce, we know you got that contract and it's there. Now you have so many certifications in Scrum. Where would you tell people? And I'm really thinking even for myself, because I love learning. I just happen to I was tired of people telling me you have to do Scrum. And then I heard a scenario and I'm like, really? That's what you said? Let me learn what what you're doing. But where should people go? Because of course, someone like me is like, well, I got the Scrum, I got the book. I don't want to just train. I'm not that, my ego's not that big. It's big, but it's not that big. What should be the next step? Because I was told, well, Kelly, you should be a product owner because you do this and you should go for and I'm just like, hold on, let me not be overwhelmed, because I also have to take time from, the projects and travel and my kids, which would travel together. Where should we go from Scrum Master to what?
So on Scrum Alliance, there are tons of certifications that you can look into. So I would say it depends on the path you want to take. So yes, CSM, Certified Scrum Master, the class that you took, Kellen, that's like the first thing, like the base. We start there where we teach about Scrum and how do you go from there? What are the different elements, the different roles? And then if you see yourself as, moving more towards product owner role, where you will be representing the business, the stakeholders, where you are driving the product, you are more into roadmaps, release dates, all of that, then there is another certification called CSPO, Certified Scrum Product Owner, where the trainer will teach you more from the product owner point of view. How do you do stakeholder management and all of those things? If you've already been a Scrum Master or you are part of a Scrum team and you feel that Scrum Master is the path I want to move forward, then I would say at least with 1 year of experience of being on a Scrum team, go for the ACSM path. So that's the Advanced Certified Scrum Master, where you start talking about the challenges at the organization level. And, what are some other ways you can help your team besides being a teacher for them? Like, how do you start coaching into, go into deep and all of those things. So the whole path is laid out on the Scrum Alliance website.
And it's beautiful and it's easy. I just wanted you to say that because there's also, again, I'm very nosy and that's why I think I'm great at what I do. And so I was even looking at the developer part because, putting apps together, I don't even embarrass myself anymore trying to put websites together. It's been 15, 20 years, so I had to really do it myself. But I am a great puff daddy on websites and say, nope, we're going to put it there. We're going to use the PHP. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And you guys knock that out for, the team. The developer side, can you talk about that a little bit and who you think that would be for? Because you are a computer, whiz yourself. So talk about that.
So yes, there is a certification called CSD, Certified Scrum Developer, where, it talks more about, like you just said, that, developers, people who are actually developing the product or the features, how can they, understand the Scrum framework from their point of view? What is expected from them? How will it help them while they're building the product? It also teaches you more about the camaraderie as one unit where, it's all hands on deck. We are all in this together working on it. So yes, I would say definitely explore the CSD certification on Scrum Alliance.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was doing my research on developers, a lot of times people say, oh, well, I'm not, a computer whiz, or I'm not, this or that. You say UX designer, I can't even, open up my own Facebook, but the developer, I saw people who are just working. I think it was in one of your videos and they were doing the glasses thing and they're like, we're developers. Yes. You don't have to be, front end, back end and all between. So it's so like open that what a developer is.
Very true. Very true. It's about, traditionally, yes, whenever you think about developer, you think of people who do programming or coding. But in the Scrum framework, developers mean who is helping us develop a working functionality, who is helping us develop something that is valuable for your customer. So it can be anyone, technical writer, graphic designer, programmer, testers, anybody who's helping you develop something valuable for your customer. They are called developers. So like you said, yes, it's broad. We're looking for cross-functional skills, people who have, that attitude that we are a team, we are in this together, we're going to work together and create something valuable.
And I know I don't think you have the developer certification. Teacher, tell us why not, just so people can kind of gauge and say, okay, I didn't do the developer because I knew what I wanted to teach already. Is that the reason? What for you?
Right. So yes, very true. It is that. It's more of, I was always geared more towards being a Scrum Master. And this is, I want to take this opportunity to let everyone know that to be a Scrum Master, you don't have to be technical. For you, it's the people skills. You need to be a social engineer, where you need to know how do I help my team achieve their goal. So for you, knowing who to reach out to when your team is stuck, or if my team is, having a conflict, how do I resolve that? Or how do I convince that one team member, to come and attend my daily Scrum? How do I coach them? How do I become a better teacher? Or how do I become a better impediment remover? So those are the skills I was more geared towards, and that's what we're looking for in a Scrum Master, being more of a servant leader, where you're serving the team by helping them and creating an environment for them. So that's the reason I never did CSD, and I geared more towards being a Scrum Master.
Now, you have to, at least from the Scrum Alliance side, renew. I know, there's another side of Scrum. We won't even talk about that. But is there anywhere at a certain level where you don't have to renew, or is it the same type? Do you just have to go through the same training? And if things have changed in Scrum, because some people will say, well, I paid for this, and in 2 years, I'm going to have to pay for it again. In 2 years, I'm going to have to pay for it again. And they say, maybe I got a job, maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm doing something different. So it's like a nursing license or anything. You have to keep it going. At least on the Scrum Alliance side. You guys got to do your own research and see why I say that, because Scrum, when it created, it took a split. It's kind of like a gospel or a boy band, and some on a certain side, there's certain rules and different things. So can you talk about like how people can keep up with their licenses? Because some people, they're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to have any more money in 2 years that I have now.
Right. So CSM, that is Certified Scrum Master, through Scrum Alliance, your certificate will be valid for 2 years. And after 2 years, when you're renewing it, you don't have to come back to a class. Scrum Alliance, you pay $100 to them, and you have to earn SEUs, Scrum Education Units, where, we want you to be up to date on what's happening with the Scrum world. What are some new things that, have happened? Maybe the Scrum guide has got updated, or there are some new case studies that are in the market. We want you to know what's going on in the Scrum world. So you have to earn those education units, which are listed out on the Scrum Alliance website. So it's very simple stuff like reading a document or a blog or watching some videos that will earn you those credits. So it's very easy to maintain the certificate, but at the same time, I would say, there are many, many organizations, once you get a job there, they are more than happy to pay for your renewal, because they want people who are up to date with what's happening in the Scrum world, because, eventually it helps their organization when you are helping them implement the framework.
So would it make more sense then for someone who is looking for work to say, okay, do the Certified Scrum Master, do the Advanced, then do the Certified Scrum Professional, and then if I want to check out Product Owner, to do that? So just knock all that out. So you're just speaking the same language and then switch over? Or do you, maybe you have a different method on how people, if they want to just kind of see Product Owner or Scrum Master?
Frankly, it's very much on that individual. So I have had participants who come to my Scrum class, and then they'll go to the Product Owner class as well, because they want to get a view from both the ends. There are some participants who will do CSM, then after a year, they'll do ACSM, and then from there, they'll go to CSP. So it very much on that individual, what path you want to take. But there are some who do everything. So their organizations are also, encouraging them to get certified. And, because it's personal development, it helps you when you're taking a class. You get so much different perspective from the trainer when they share their experiences, real world success and failure stories as well. So over there, when you take these classes, that's what you're gaining. And it's not just the trainer, even the participants, they share their own experiences. So that also helps you know that you're not alone in your struggle. There are other organizations also who are going through the same struggle when you're transforming from traditional to your using the Scrum framework.
And the class that I took with you, what do you take? Do you teach other classes, or is that kind of just your wheelhouse and that's why you're so excellent at it? Like, that's all I teach. I don't want to do advanced anything yet. Maybe, there's something in the advanced that might give you a headache, but is that pretty much what you teach?
So yes, that is the majority of my classes scheduled out there, but I do teach CSPO and other stuff as well, but it's more of on the private side where the organization may say, can you come and teach us with us a product owner class, or why don't you coach our Scrum Masters, so coaching the coaches. So even that happens a lot, but that's more on the private side where, I just go to those organizations and train them. But publicly, you'll only see certified Scrum Master classes. They are scheduled out there.
Okay, and I'm just trying to look, because I was looking at your upcoming courses and I didn't see an advanced one, and I'm like, okay, if that ever changes, and you remember, let me know, because again, keeping my interest. Like I saw some of the teachers, and not to say anything bad, but sometimes it's like there's no flavor. Can we put a little bit of flavor in that? And just looking at the preview, and some people don't have much of a preview, and some do. So when I like something, I like it. I like to stick with it. Tell the people, what is a community give back, whether you're using Scrum or not, that you're doing or that you would like to do in the future?
Well, I can say that I definitely want to help, spread the word of Scrum as much as possible, like not just in US or just 1 or 2 countries, but like globally, because frankly, it is making your life so much easier because it makes everything transparent and it's very simple to understand. So there are so many people who think that Scrum is only for IT industry. No, not at all. You can use it in any kind of project, even your home projects. There are people constructing houses using Scrum, or they are using in their own, small businesses like mom and pop shops, where they're just using Scrum to run their day-to-day activities, where everything is so simplified for you. So that is something I want to do. And, like pro bono, like I want to give back to the community that this is something I'm really good at. I can explain this to you, how this will benefit you. Yeah, and that is something I want to reach out to.
Well, again, I go back to the government contracting, because this is something that, every school district could use. And when we talk about boring, my goodness, I remember high school, I remember middle school, you hear the same thing, and now it's a new world. How is Scrum, how have you seen it been impacted with AI? Right now, the big talk is Chat GDP, like it just came out. But my 12-year-old wrote her first book using AI at 7.
Fantastic. Wow, that's commendable.
Well, it's just, again, being nosy and finding out and going to, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas is one of my favorite conferences to go to, but just talking to people and reading books never hurts, you guys, to read a book and make your kids read a book. They might know something more than what Justin Bieber or whoever is hot right now. But can you talk about how AI and Scrum, how have you seen the change? Because right now on Clubhouse, I promise you, there is somebody talking about Chat GDP and talking about Scrum. And sooner or later, they're going to connect it and say, you know what? I use Scrum with Chat GDP and I told Chat GDP this and that. And, boom. So where do you see AI and Scrum coming together?
I would say it's already happening. AI is something that you're using to build something, right? And Scrum is putting that system in place. It's giving you that platform where your whole team is getting together using AI to build some fabulous products. So we never know, even maybe Chat GPT was produced by using Scrum because it's a framework, right? It's helping you organize your work. You have these, let's say these 15 features that you want to develop and release it right now to the customer. But what kind of framework are you using? So maybe Scrum is something that they can look into and say, hey, you know what? These are the priorities. Let's put it on the board. Let's run 2-week sprints. And now in next 2 weeks, this is all we're going to focus on. At the end of 2 weeks, you show it to your stakeholders. This is what we've done so far. What do you think? Ask for feedback, and then you keep adapting. And that's it. That is Scrum in a nutshell, where you're constantly delivering value very frequently.
How do you use Scrum in your personal life, family, friends? Because even with doing this meeting, you're like, oh, I got you my product backlog. And I'm like, wow, she's not human. She is the AI.
Yes. So in fact, recently, a friend of mine got married and she used Scrum. So I introduced her to the Scrum framework because, the bride was getting really overwhelmed with tons of decisions to be made and, how it gets sometimes. So then I said, okay, how about we use Scrum to, plan your whole wedding. And then we had the whole, so in her garage, like one entire wall, we just had flip charts. And now there's a whole thing of product backlog with all color-coded system, like for flowers and music and dresses and guests. So that became the whole product backlog. And then, it was so easy when everything was visualized that, okay, what do you want here? It became so easy to start eliminating that, no, we don't want this, we don't want that. So I think that really helped her calm down, because now everything is right there in front of you. Take your time and just prioritize what you need to focus on right now. Don't get overwhelmed with all the decisions you have to make. How about we just stick to this for this week? How about we just go on these things and then get it done? Once that is done, let's look at the next set of priorities. So yes, you can use Scrum for any kind of project.
Was this an Indian wedding or typical
Yes,
Western?
it was an Indian wedding.
Woo! Okay, you needed Scrum
So
for that.
you know how it is, like full 5 days of festivities. It's like a festival. Yeah, it's not one day.
You guys, if you haven't been to an Indian wedding, you haven't seen gold in, just, and it's abundance.
Tons and tons.
Yes. So no. Now for, because you are so detailed and I have such a thirsty audience, let me know for your own family life, because I don't want someone hitting you up on Instagram and be like, my goodness, your own family, do you use Scrum? I don't know if you have kids, but I would assume somebody has snatched you up to say, I need to be organized. Please help me. How does that work if you do have a husband and kids, with Scrum? Because that's how I kind of got sold. The lady was like, you can meet my friend. She was like, you can even use this with your kids, Kellen.
Yes.
And I'm like,
absolutely. Yes, I have a daughter. I'm very happily married. I have an 8-year-old. And we do use Scrum. Sometimes it's like, I would say planning a vacation. Something very simple of that sort, that, okay, let's just see what all do we want to do. We can't get through everything, when you go to a vacation, that I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm like, no, let's relax, some relaxing time is also needed. So then, we let our 8-year-old be the product owner for that. Okay, we can only do so much. So you prioritize. What do you want to do? Do you want to do this, or this? You cannot do everything. So it's all about just helping, visualizing it, frankly, that, okay, let's put the Post-its here. Why don't you see this? What is your must have? What is your should have? What is your could have? So it just becomes very easy. And, I talk about this in the house all the time, that, okay, what do we do? How do I get this done? And she's like, oh, you're talking about your work, right? Isn't it about Scrum, what you're saying? I'm like, yeah, that is Scrum.
You live and breathe it, and I'm glad that you let it be known about the family. Thank you, because again, I don't want somebody trying to join your class thinking after this is going to be a Namaste Wahala episode part 2. You guys haven't checked that movie out, check it out on Netflix. Great, when Nollywood and Bollywood came together. I hope they do more. This is beautiful. So we have the private training, we have the book, but nothing yet with the podcast or the YouTube yet. You guys, I will push and maybe she'll put it on her backlog, because you could talk about this all day and you're great at it.
Yes, but maybe people want to break from it. Like, okay, enough, we got it. 2 days, we've just heard you say Scrum. Maybe take a break now.
They won't be mad when, and it's a serious thing when people are out of work as adults. Folks have mortgages, they have rents, they have car payments. America is king and queen of credit, unlike most of the world that will pay for something, at least almost all the way in Africa. Pay for it. Credit, what? Who's giving you that? And the rate you don't want. But, people are really hurting. And so they need that. And that's what I heard in those small groups. And I was like, wow, people are really jumping on this. It's like their parachute. And I saw someone get a job. I don't know how much Scrum they'll be doing, but they got a job, like maybe 2-3 weeks later. And I was so happy to see that.
That's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah. So let the people know, and I will make sure I put the links in the description where they can connect with you, catch a class, and catch a book. You guys, catch a book. especially because the book is well written and it's just beautiful, tons of knowledge.
No, thank you so much for that, Kellen. I really appreciate it. So yes, please, you can go to my website, attainagility.com, and you can see my whole schedule out there. I teach every weekend and every Monday, Tuesday. So whatever is convenient for you, it's a remote class. Feel free to just, register. And yeah, sometimes I have Thursday, Friday class, but that's rare. Usually I just, take a breather. I keep talking so much in my class, just sometimes they're like, shh, no talking.
Yes. And you guys have been blessed with this game. For someone, I saw her, even with the difficult people, she just stays so calm and cool and can just bring it back, because you always have at least that one
Always
in
one.
a class.
Always one in every class, every time.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, it wasn't boring at all. So I was like, oh, I could do this again. Let me just, when I come back from longer trips, I just need to take some time off, regroup. And that's how I regroup, because I have to stay working the way my brain works. So my Scrum was like, okay, I don't have to work, but I can at least learn something and let you do all the talking, or most of it. I appreciate you. You guys, make sure if you share this game, it will change someone's life. Be blessed, y'all.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stress the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kelly Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.